You see that little white rock over there?
Look at me, boy. Don't you smoke crack? Yes, sir.
See this? Look. See this shit?
We still working on the renovations, brothers and sisters.
Hold up, y'all. A new podcast has just dropped some explosive claims about Dr. Umar. And let me tell you, it's sending shockwaves across the internet. This man is exposed like never before. What you're about to hear is not your average gossip. We're talking a total scam. And yes, it involves his so-called school tour.
Umar Johnson was at a little function, a conscious function. He just passed out as of now as I'm talking to you.
Because he coked up all the motherfucking time.
Powerful.
Man. All right. I gotta keep my composure, man.
I will cherish this experience for the rest of my life.
According to this podcast, Dr. Umar's events, the very tours he claims are about empowering Black parents and teaching children, might not be what they seem. Are these schools really operating? Are the boot camps legit? Or is the whole thing just smoke and mirrors? The allegations don't stop there. The podcast paints a picture of a man living a homeless lifestyle, bouncing from rental cars to his mother's house, traveling across the country every winter just to chase warm weather. And the FDMG school, the place he shows off in his videos, may not be a functioning school at all. Could it actually just be a prop? A backdrop for his online persona?
Lost his mind. I done learned so much from watching Lennon Honor. Shout out to Lennon Honor, man. He been covering this dude for years, so he got history. He got history on Dr. Rib Tip, Ifatunde Ogun Tade. Yeah, man, this brother. So apparently, every winter, because I guess he stays in Pennsylvania, between there and his mama's house and the abandoned FDMG crack house. We already know that, right? Apparently, every year when it gets cold, on the East Coast or whatever, he does these tours, quote unquote tours, to these warm states. Now, we all know it's not a tour. I mean, it's just this nigga getting a plane ticket, picking some, unimportant little conference that don't nobody know shit about. He show up, there's 7 people there, he make $38 and probably a free meal at the hotel. Where my Sacramento Africans at? Where my get evicted Africans at?
And get this, some claim these so-called educational conferences are just a front, a way to scam money under the guise of teaching and community service. The more you dig, the crazier it gets. So if you think you know Dr. Umar, think again. Watch closely, because the truth might shock you. By the end of this video, you'll see a side of him that his followers may never admit, and it's going to make you question everything you thought about the school tour. All right, let's dive in and uncover the real story behind Dr. Umar's controversial operations. To understand why this recent podcast is causing such a stir, we need to step back and look at who Dr. Umar really is. On the surface, he's a well-known public figure, an educational speaker, and the founder of the FDMG, the so-called Family the Money Gone school system. Over the years, he's built a reputation as someone committed to Black education, parent empowerment, and community upliftment. His videos are full of speeches, tours, and seminars that claim to teach parents how to advocate for their children, run successful schools, and navigate the educational system. Dr. Umar has made multiple media appearances over the years, from interviews to guest spots on community podcasts and YouTube shows. His supporters see him as a revolutionary figure, a man of knowledge, culture, and authority. On social media, he's praised for his intelligence, his confidence, and his ability to inspire people to take control of their families' educational futures. There's no denying that he has an audience, one that genuinely believes in his mission.
Hey, it's Kunta Kinte!
When you come to the grand opening, drop a donation in the box, brothers and sisters. When you come to the grand opening, you must drop a...
Shut the fuck up!
Where my Ebola finger Africans at? Yeah, where my stay at mom's crib forever Africans at? Where my rental car Africans at? Smash them likes, hit that subscribe, y'all. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. This brother done lost his mind.
Now, let's look at the FDMG school itself. According to Dr. Umar, this school is meant to be a hub for parent boot camps, community outreach, and hands-on educational programs. In his videos, he shows renovations underway, new tiles, painted classrooms, and classrooms being rekeyed, painting a picture of progress and growth. He talks about organizing conferences, teaching parents how to navigate special education systems, and creating a safe educational environment for children. The messaging is clear. This is more than just a school. It's a movement, a community resource, a beacon of hope. But here's where the podcast comes in and things start to unravel. According to the latest episode, much of what Dr. Umar presents may be all for show. The podcast critiques the school's operations, suggesting that these renovations and programs are staged for appearances. It questions whether the boot camps and conferences are genuinely effective, or if they're just events designed to generate attention and donations. Every claim about community outreach is weighed against what the podcast describes as real-life inconsistencies, including his living arrangements and travel habits.
I have a school for 10 years and not finish shit Africans at. Yeah, man, shout out to Rim Rum TV too. I was on his live the other day, dropped by. He got a new name for you, Dr. Umar Ifatunde Intergalactic Rib Tip. Yeah, another nickname for your sloppy ass. He said, I stay at my mama crib. What did he say? Let me get this right. I stay where my mama stay Tunde. Yeah, that got a nice little jingle to it. Yeah, just like Finger in the Booty Tunde. That got another nice little jingle. Yeah, he looking like a straight bum. He's looking like a straight bum. And that's crazy, man. I haven't been following Umar for as long as Lennon.
The contrast between public image and reality is where it gets interesting. Online, Dr. Umar appears organized, influential, and committed to his cause. He's the visionary leader of a growing movement. But according to the podcast, the reality may be very different. A man bouncing from place to place, relying on rental cars and family homes, using the FDMG school more as a prop than a functioning educational institution. The discrepancies are significant, and they set the stage for the upcoming explosive exposé. By now, viewers should be questioning everything they think they know about Dr. Umar. How much of what he shows online is real? How much is carefully curated for his audience? And more importantly, how did these actions affect the very community he claims to serve? Stay tuned, because in the next segment, we'll dig into the podcast's claims in detail, from alleged scams to faked tours, and reveal what the critics are really saying about Dr. Umar and his FDMG operations. You won't want to miss this. Now we get to the heart of the controversy. The podcast claims about Dr. Umar that have everyone talking. According to the latest episode, his so-called school tour events might not be what they appear to be at all. The allegations are explosive, and they paint a picture that's very different from the online persona his followers know. First, let's talk about the school tour events themselves. The podcast claims that these tours are not genuine educational initiatives. Instead, they are staged events designed to bring in donations, small appearance fees, and in some cases, free meals from the venues. Attendees, the podcast reports, are often extremely limited. Sometimes just a handful of people show up, barely filling a room. One striking quote from the podcast goes, quote, "He's basically homeless. He's traveling from East Coast to West Coast every winter, just looking for a warm place to stay while he cashes in on these tiny events." The podcast details how Dr. Umar reportedly travels every year during colder months, hopping from city to city, Fort Worth, Phoenix, Sacramento, Oakland, all while claiming to hold full-fledged conferences and boot camps. But according to the reporting, The reality is starkly different. He stays in rental cars or his mother's home, moves between cheap accommodations, and relies on minimal resources. This is a far cry from the image of a confident, influential educator he projects online. Now, let's dig into the lifestyle accusations. The podcast doesn't just question the events, it raises serious concerns about Dr. Umar's personal behavior.
That's all he uses that school for, man. That paint job and them couple rooms that he painted, that's it. He don't plan on doing shit else. He didn't even really mention FDMG in this video as far as I looked. You know, we're going to cover it a little bit. We're going to check out some clips from Lennon Honor. Like I said, shout out to Lennon Honor. Shout out to Miss Stacks too, because she watches the videos and, you know, she liked the videos. And don't come over here talking bad about Miss Stacks. I told y'all, we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And she's straight now, so, you know, she ain't got to worry about this nigga trying to put the Ebola finger in her butt or none of that shit. Shout out to Miss Stacks, man.
There are claims of drug use, erratic conduct, and even dangerous tendencies. Clips referenced in the episode reportedly show him appearing disoriented, losing composure during speeches, or behaving in ways that suggest he is trying to milk every penny from supporters. One podcaster bluntly states, "The FDMG school is just a prop. He's not really running programs there. It's just a backdrop for his appearances. And the floors, the classrooms, all that renovation talk, it's mostly for show."
He said every year when it gets cold, this nigga looking for a warm place to stay. Where my Jamaican Africans at? Where my closet conference Africans at? Where the unattractive women with bad kids Africans at? Yeah, I'm gonna be in Antioch, California, then I'm gonna be in Sacramento, nigga. You gonna be in a rental car and a Super 8 motel. That's what you gonna be doing. This man is basically homeless, man. I don't think, see, what it is, he ain't raising no money right now. People done kicked him to the curb. He probably got a few little loyal supporters, you know, get him a little Hyundai rental car or something. But anyway, there's probably no heat in that school. Hell, we know it wasn't no water. It was 18 pounds of shit in that bitch. So we know it wasn't no, you know, I mean, the electricity being off, that's not far-fetched, man. The heat, the gas or whatever is runoff, electricity or gas.
The podcast goes further, showing time-stamped clips from Dr. Umar's social media and live videos highlighting inconsistencies. For example, in one clip, he announces a California tour with multiple stops. But the podcast notes that these stops are limited to small bookstores or church halls, often empty, barely attended. The podcaster adds commentary about his presence in these spaces, noting how it's more about optics than substance. Another key point raised, the contrast between online portrayal and reality. Dr. Umar's videos show him as commanding and composed, leading confident tours and delivering speeches. But according to the podcast, these moments are carefully curated. Behind the scenes, he is allegedly traveling on a tight budget, staying in unconventional places, and improvising events that are hardly the conferences he claims. The podcaster even suggests, every year it's the same pattern. He comes out, does his little tour, and disappears. FDMG floors? Still not done. Classrooms? Mostly untouched. The whole thing is a cycle of appearances and empty promises. The credibility of the podcast itself is also addressed. According to the episode, the host has years of experience covering Dr. Umar, referencing past events, prior reporting, and public social media clips. They cross-check statements with followers, previous attendees, and online footage, building a case that these claims are based on consistent observations, not speculation. As viewers, it's important to think critically here. The podcast doesn't outright claim Dr. Umar is a criminal, but it raises serious questions about authenticity, transparency, and intent. Are these events genuinely meant to educate and empower, or are they cleverly disguised revenue opportunities? The podcast leaves that judgment to the audience, but the patterns it documents are hard to ignore. Timestamps from clips further highlight alleged erratic behavior, moments where he struggles to maintain composure, moments where the backdrop of FDMG is clearly used as a prop, and moments suggesting he prioritizes optics over substance. The podcaster even emphasizes, every year it's the same pattern. He comes out, does his little tour, and disappears. FDMG floors, still not done. Classrooms, mostly untouched. The whole thing is a cycle of appearances and empty promises. The clips cited in the podcast support these claims with visual proof. Small event rooms, quiet halls, empty auditoriums, painting a picture far removed from the large, thriving community Dr. Umar portrays online. The podcaster ties it all together, suggesting that the public image, the social media clips, and the FDMG school backdrop all function as tools to sustain an image rather than to reflect actual work being done. By the end of this segment, viewers should feel the tension mounting. The discrepancy between promise and reality is glaring. Every detail, from the limited attendance to the alleged lifestyle choices, point toward a man whose public persona may be more fiction than fact. And it sets the stage for the next segment, a deeper investigation into the financial and operational aspects of Dr. Umar's activities and what this all could mean for those who support him. Now, let's get into what the podcast calls the school tour events, the core of this controversy. Dr. Umar promotes these tours as full-scale educational programs, parent boot camps, and community outreach events. According to his online announcements, he's hitting cities across the country: Fort Worth, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Sacramento and Oakland, California, Detroit, Michigan. Each event is presented as a massive gathering for parents and educators designed to empower, educate, and transform communities. But here is where the podcast raises eyebrows. Allegedly, the reality is very different. Attendance, for instance, is often shockingly low compared to the hype. The podcaster cites clips showing rooms that are half empty or have just a handful of attendees, far from the bustling, packed halls Dr. Umar's marketing suggests. One striking clip shows him walking into a small conference room, waving to barely a dozen people. The podcaster comments, "This is marketed as a school tour, but it's really just a tiny gathering. It's almost theatrical, like he's performing for the camera." The purpose of these events, as Dr. Umar presents them, is education, mentoring, and the Black Parent Boot Camp program. The tour is supposed to teach parents how to navigate the school system, advocate for children with special needs, and engage in mental health and community initiatives. But the podcast points out several red flags that cast doubt on these claims. First, the FDMG school renovations he continually promises have never been fully completed. Videos from years prior show half-finished floors, unpainted classrooms, and empty hallways. Yet, Dr. Umar continues to reference these spaces as functioning education hubs. The podcaster notes, every time he mentions the FDMG school, it's the same line: floors almost done, classrooms almost ready. But years pass and nothing changes. The school is mostly a prop. Second, many of the tour stops rely on rented or borrowed spaces, such as small churches, community centers, or bookstores. The podcaster emphasizes that these spaces often provide free meals or minor stipends, creating an incentive for Dr. Umar to travel rather than genuinely educate. Combined with low turnout, this paints a picture of a tour that is more about optics and appearances than actual impact. Marketing tactics also come under scrutiny. According to the podcast, Dr. Umar's announcements inflate the scale and importance of these events. Phrases like full-day boot camp or community empowerment summit are broadcast widely online, but the reality, according to attendee reports and footage, is far more modest. The podcaster even highlights visual inconsistencies: backgrounds carefully framed to show logos or banners, empty rooms edited to appear full, and carefully chosen camera angles that give the illusion of a bustling crowd. Visual examples are key here. Clips from the podcast show Dr. Umar walking into small auditoriums, greeting barely a dozen attendees, and speaking to empty rows. Photos and screenshots from social media support this narrative. People in the comments express skepticism and disappointment. One comment reads, "I drove 2 hours for this, and it was basically a private chat with like 5 people. Totally different from the hype online." Another says, "He keeps talking about renovations and programs, but it's just the same old backdrop every time. Feels more like a photo shoot than a school tour." Audience reactions amplify the concerns. Skeptical followers, former attendees, and social media users repeatedly question the legitimacy of the events. Critics highlight misleading marketing, low engagement, and lack of follow-through as clear red flags. The podcast also notes that this pattern repeats year after year, reinforcing the notion that these tours are a cycle of appearances with minimal substance. The takeaway? While Dr. Umar presents these tours as transformational educational programs, the podcast paints a very different picture. Low attendance, uncompleted renovations, reliance on props and rented spaces, and marketing tactics designed to create hype rather than deliver real value. Viewers are left questioning, is this an elaborate scam or simply a mismanaged operation? The tension builds as the podcast moves toward even more revealing evidence. In the next segment, we'll dive deeper into the financials and donor implications of these tours, looking at where the money goes, how events are funded, and whether supporters are being misled. Stay tuned, because the next part uncovers even more shocking details about the operations behind the scenes. Now, let's shift focus from the events themselves to Dr. Umar's personal lifestyle as highlighted in the podcast. According to the podcaster, much of what's claimed about him, the tours, the educational mission, the parent boot camps, is directly influenced by his personal circumstances. First, there are repeated claims about where he stays during these tours. The podcast alleges that Dr. Umar often relies on his mother's home or rental cars when traveling from city to city. Listeners are told that every winter he migrates from the cold East Coast to warmer states like California or Arizona, supposedly in search of hospitable climates. But the podcast paints a less glamorous picture. Imagine someone flying across the country just to speak to a handful of attendees, staying in a cramped car or someone else's home, all while trying to maintain the appearance of authority and professionalism. The podcaster goes on to describe odd or erratic behaviors at events. Clips highlight moments where Dr. Umar seems agitated, distracted, or even reckless, with body language that's inconsistent with the image of a calm, authoritative educational leader. In one striking moment, the podcast notes, "He's basically homeless, shuffling from hotel to rental car, trying to milk every penny from attendees who barely show up." Another clip references the FDMG school as a mere prop, emphasizing that his personal lifestyle, limited housing, cold winters, constant travel, is directly linked to why the school remains unfinished. It's not just about funds or effort. The podcast argues it's about prioritizing appearances over substance. Now, it's important to acknowledge that these are allegations. The podcast admits that some claims could be exaggerated or dramatized for effect. Perhaps Dr. Umar has personal struggles we don't fully understand, financial, health-related, or otherwise. But the podcaster uses these lifestyle details to highlight inconsistencies. If he truly had the resources and dedication to run a nationwide school tour, why rely on temporary housing and small rented spaces? Why repeat the same tour stops with low turnout each year? Storytelling becomes key here. Imagine this scenario. You fly thousands of miles across the country, land in a city where your event promises hundreds, only to find 7 attendees waiting. You navigate unfamiliar neighborhoods, sleeping in a rental car or a friend's living room, trying to maintain a persona of influence and expertise, while all the while, online, your followers are seeing slick videos and marketing claims of packed events and thriving educational programs. The contrast is stark, and that's exactly what the podcast seeks to expose. Why do these lifestyle claims matter for credibility? Because perception is reality in public-facing work. If an educational figure constantly projects authority while living a transient or unstable lifestyle, it raises questions about their capacity to deliver on promises. It's not just gossip, it's a lens through which to evaluate whether the school tours and programs are legitimate or largely performative. The podcast repeatedly emphasizes this point. Personal conduct and operational credibility are deeply intertwined. Furthermore, these claims tie directly to the broader theme of the exposé. Dr. Umar's tours, his online presence, and the FDMG school are presented as proof of impact and community commitment. Yet the podcast juxtaposes this image against a backdrop of travel hardship, unfinished renovations, and low event attendance. The result is a pattern of inconsistencies, which fuels skepticism. Every luxurious claim online is countered by footage and testimony suggesting struggle, improvisation, and possibly exploitation of supporters. Ultimately, this section of the podcast forces the audience to ask critical questions. Are these honest efforts hampered by circumstance? Or is there an intentional performance designed to convince people of success that doesn't exist? By examining lifestyle alongside operations, the podcast builds a compelling narrative that exposes gaps between image and reality, setting the stage for even deeper revelations about funding, donor involvement, and the true scale of the school tour. In the next section, we'll break down the financial and operational inconsistencies, analyzing how money is raised, where it goes, and whether the school tours are truly educational or primarily profit-driven. You'll see exactly why supporters are questioning every claim Dr. Umar makes, and why the story continues to spark debate online. Now, let's turn our attention to the FDMG school, which the podcast claims is less a functioning educational institution and more a visual prop. According to the podcaster, the school is rarely used for actual programs, and the renovations and improvements Dr. Umar often touts online have been delayed for years. The podcast makes a strong argument that the school exists primarily for photo and video opportunities. Clips included in the show highlight empty classrooms, unfinished floors, and areas that are clearly under construction or neglected, yet they appear in Dr. Umar's promotional videos as evidence of a thriving operational facility. The podcaster even points out that camera angles are repetitive, always showing the same rooms, painted walls, and shiny floors, as if to create the illusion of activity and progress. For example, the podcast features timestamps showing Dr. Umar standing in front of the same sections of the building multiple times, claiming renovations are ongoing. Yet behind him, the environment does not change over months or even years, which the podcaster argues is a clear sign that the school is not being actively improved or maintained. This raises a critical question. If the school isn't fully operational, why does it exist? The podcast suggests it's a tool to bolster Dr. Umar's credibility online, giving the appearance of authority and community impact without the substance to back it up. By using these visual props strategically, Dr. Umar can reinforce his image as an educational leader, even if few actual educational programs are being run. Audience reactions cited in the podcast further highlight skepticism. Comments from social media users question the authenticity of the school and note the stark contrast between online claims and reality on the ground. Many viewers wonder if the school is intentionally used as a scam tactic, a way to solicit donations or fees for events under the guise of educational initiatives. Ultimately, these allegations directly challenge Dr. Umar's public image. Supporters may see him as a committed educator, but the podcast paints a picture of a man using visuals and minimal effort to project a false sense of legitimacy. The argument ties back to the broader theme of the exposé, a pattern of misleading tactics, incomplete projects, and staged appearances that cast doubt on the authenticity of his work. In the next section, we'll examine the so-called parent boot camps and conference events, breaking down attendance, marketing, and alleged inconsistencies, and showing how they connect to both the lifestyle claims and the school allegations. This is where the narrative of a potential scam really comes into focus. Now let's dive into how the public and online community reacted to these explosive podcast claims about Dr. Umar. Immediately after the podcast dropped, social media lit up with comments and debates. Many viewers called him a scammer, a lost cause, or even accused him of using the school and tour events purely for personal gain. But it's not all one-sided. There are still supporters who defend him, claiming the podcast is exaggerating or misrepresenting the facts. This divide, supporters versus critics, has fueled a storm of engagement online, with clips of the podcast being shared, reshared, and dissected across multiple platforms. Some of the most viral moments included specific quotes from the podcast, like, "FDMG school is just a prop," or "he's basically homeless," which viewers immediately turned into memes and hashtags, amplifying the controversy. Hashtags like Dr. Umar exposed and school tour scam started trending in certain communities, showing how quickly the conversation spread. The podcast has undeniably stirred debates, pushing people to question what they thought they knew about Dr. Umar. Critics argue it lays bare inconsistencies in staged appearances, while supporters claim it's a targeted attack on his reputation. Either way, the conversation is now public, and it's forcing the community to engage with the allegations. This segment demonstrates the power of podcasts and social media in shaping public perception. When a controversial topic like this hits the internet, it can quickly polarize audiences, driving conversation, shares, and sometimes even backlash, not only toward the figure in question, but also toward the podcast creators themselves. As we move forward, we'll examine how these events and allegations tie back to Dr. Umar's credibility, lifestyle, and the ongoing debate over his true intentions, which is where things get even more revealing. Now that we've gone through the podcast claims, public reactions, and alleged lifestyle details, let's break down the key takeaways. The podcast paints a picture of Dr. Umar's operations as inconsistent, if not entirely fabricated. The main claims revolve around faked school tours, events that draw only a handful of attendees despite grand promises, and appearances that seem designed to maximize free meals and small payments rather than genuinely educate. The FDMG school itself is described as more of a prop than a functional educational facility, with renovations delayed for years and photo and video ops prioritized over actual improvements. On the lifestyle front, the podcast alleges that Dr. Umar travels from East Coast winters to warmer states, sometimes staying in rental cars or his mother's house, presenting a stark contrast between his public persona and personal circumstances. Critics argue these behaviors undermine his credibility, especially when tied to claims of leading parent boot camps and educational programs. So, what does this mean for his reputation? Well, if the podcast's allegations hold weight, trust among followers could erode significantly. Supporters who once viewed him as a visionary or educator might begin questioning the authenticity of his work and the financial motivations behind it. For longtime critics, this may serve as further evidence of a pattern of misrepresentation, incomplete projects, and staged appearances that cast doubt on the authenticity of his work. However, this segment isn't just about pointing fingers. It's also about critical thinking. Viewers need to approach these claims carefully, investigate, cross-reference, and consider the broader context. Podcasts can provide insightful analysis, but it's crucial to remember that they reflect one perspective. In the end, the story of Dr. Umar highlights an important lesson. Public image doesn't always reflect reality. Whether or not every allegation is true, the discrepancies between claims, lifestyle, and public presentations are worth examining. It's a reminder to question, research, and think critically about anyone who positions themselves as an authority, especially when money, reputation, and education are involved. So, as we wrap up, the question remains, is this an actual scam or a series of exaggerated claims? That's for you, the viewer, to decide. But one thing is clear. The conversation is ongoing, and the evidence presented in the podcast gives us plenty to consider. Dr. Umar's story is shocking, controversial, and raises a lot of questions. From the podcast perspective, it seems that his so-called school tours and educational events may not be what they appear, and his lifestyle, travel patterns, and use of the FDMG school as a prop paint a picture of mismanagement and potential dishonesty. For supporters, this is a lot to process. It challenges the public image of a figure many viewed as an authority in education and parent advocacy. For critics, it reinforces concerns about inconsistencies and scams. Either way, the allegations are serious and demand critical examination. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think these claims are true? Could someone really be running events like this without proper organization, transparency, or purpose? Would you personally attend an event like this if you were in the community? The story doesn't end here. There's more to unpack. more clips to analyze, and additional allegations that will break down in upcoming videos. Stay tuned, because the full picture is still emerging, and the evidence is only growing. Remember, it's not about taking anyone's word blindly. It's about thinking critically, examining the facts, and drawing your own conclusions. Dr. Umar's saga may be controversial, but it's also a cautionary tale about following public figures without question. So as we close today's breakdown, keep these questions in mind, and let's continue the conversation. Your perspective matters. Comment below with what you think about these allegations, and we'll dive deeper in the next video.